I have sat here in recent months, done multiple segments talking about the fact that the Republican base is getting smaller. Donald Trump's MAGA brand of politics is not appealing to anyone outside of that MAGA base, or, of course, anyone that doesn't benefit directly from Donald Trump's tax policies that he passed in 2017. Outside of that, the average everyday working class Americans, they're not exactly drawn to the Republican Party these days. And what I love is that every time I've done one of these segments, I have had plenty of people comment, especially even those on the left, by the way, saying like, that's simply not true. And the Democratic base is shrinking, they tell me every time. Well, luckily, the data backs up everything I've said. According to a recent report from Gallup, the Republican base is in fact shrinking. It is smaller than it was 4 years ago at this point, and the Democratic base is exactly the same as it was 4 years ago. So no, the Democratic base is not shrinking according to the data, but yes, the Republican base is shrinking according to the data. Now, here's the caveat to that. Apparently, the Republican base is shrinking, but it's not like it has, shrunk to the point where it's not relevant anymore. 4 years ago, in February of 2020, 30% of Americans identified as Republicans. February of 2024, 4 years later, that number has dropped down to 28% of Americans willing to admit that they were a part of the grand old party. The Democratic base, on the other hand, back in February of 2020, 29% of Americans said they were Democrats, and today that number is actually up to 30, so the Democratic base got a little bit bigger. So I was wrong. The Democratic base hasn't stayed the same. It has in fact gotten slightly larger, while the Republican base has gotten slightly smaller. 30% of Americans say that they are Democrats, 28% say that they are Republicans. Now, if you'll notice, those numbers only add up to 58% of Americans, leaving 42% to say that I don't identify with either political party. So the no party affiliation people, the independents, the ones who might be registered but don't identify, that's the largest group in this country. And that's where Donald Trump has the biggest problems. Let me read you this. His MAGA base remains large and largely unquestioning and guarantees him 30 to 35% of the vote come November. But the impact of Trump on politics has been a turnoff for many millions of Americans, and the traditional parties seem weaker and less of a draw than for decades. The party now appeals to wealthy beneficiaries of his economic policies, as well as to those who've seen themselves on the outside of politics for decades. It's a loose and odd alliance that has lost much of America's center. So, Trump's not attracting the center. Biden is doing a better job of that, but he's not like 100% getting all of those people. This election is going to come down to the moderates and the independents. And if that's what it comes down to, I think Biden's okay. Those people are not turned on by Donald Trump going out there like he did over the weekend, saying that there's going to be a bloodbath if he doesn't win this election. You don't have suburban families sitting around their kitchen table thinking, well, I don't like his economic policies, but I certainly don't want a bloodbath, so I'm going to vote for him. That's not a thing that's going to happen. But that is what Trump is doing. And as I predicted a couple weeks ago, once Nikki Haley dropped out, 100% of that Republican spotlight is on Donald Trump. He's going to say stupid things. He's going to say crazy things. And the more he does that, the more he turns off that center and continues to shrink that Republican base. And yes, just to reiterate, the data is already proving that. Well, folks, we have crossed that 1 million subscriber milestone, but rest assured, we are just getting started here at Ring of Fire. So if you're not already, please do subscribe to the channel and make sure to like, share, and comment on the videos.